I actually found out that Maverick had a heart defect when I was 23 weeks pregnant with Maverick. Unfortunately, we did not know that he had any other of the issues until as things kind of carried on. Then we found out that he had the airway problems, the lung disease. Of course, through treatment, now his kidneys are damaged. And then we found out about the scoliosis. We found out about the severe osteoporosis. Unfortunately, he obviously has a lot of underlying conditions that we have yet to been able to diagnose. We believe he has an underlying autoimmune problem, some metabolic issues, some endocrine issues. So the only thing that I actually knew prior to birth was his heart defect. And that's unfortunately kind of how his health has been, is we find one problem or you treat one problem and it's created another. And that's, like I said, we've treated him for these things and that's what's ruined his kidneys, and it's just kind of one thing after another.
That has to take such a toll on your spirituality. What a challenge that must be.
It absolutely is. I always say I wish I was upbeat as him. He runs around smiling and laughing, and that's one thing about heart kids is they don't look sick, and he's so sick, but you can't see it. And he keeps going and he pushes himself. He'll push himself till he cries and can't walk at night. And adults are so much weaker. I feel like that we're not as resilient as children are. And I get so down in the dumps and cry, and he'll see me crying about it and he'll tell me he's okay or it's going to be okay. And I don't understand why it's happening, and I'm frustrated that I can't fix it. As a parent, you're supposed to be able to fix everything for your child, and as a mother, you want to protect them and fix them, and you can't. And so I can't, if it was probably me in his situation, I probably would have given up by now, but they just keep going.
With all of these problems, you may need a miracle, and I believe in them. In fact, you may have already experienced a miracle. Back in 2013, when Maverick died, Maverick said to you, "Mommy, I'm going to die."
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I swear now I have PTSD from, and it wasn't the first time Maverick had coded, but it was a much different situation. For days, he kept telling us that he was going to die, and in fact, he wouldn't let me go get a drink. He wouldn't let me go eat. He kept telling the nurses, go get my mom this drink, and he kept telling us, but there was no signs or signals that something was wrong. His vitals were okay. And so we just, we kept telling him, "No, you're fine, you're fine." I had stepped out to go to the bathroom, and I came back and he again said it. And at that point, all the machines had gone off. Of course, I panicked and started screaming as loud as I could and just telling him, "Please save my son," and screaming and crying. And they took me out of the room, and I was in a corner. They had little cutouts, and I was on my knees just screaming. At that point, everybody was in the room working on him. His name had already spread throughout the hospital that, something was seriously wrong. So people from out the hospital were coming and crowding around, nurses, doctors. Phone calls had already been made to his other doctors that were very close with them. They were on their way back to the hospital. I had called his dad, but I couldn't even speak. So the social worker called. They called my parents. At that point, I kept screaming and watching the monitors to just, praying that something would come back on that screen. And they finally, it felt like hours had gone by, and they got him back. And I immediately ran to his bedside. He looked gray and just very ill. And as soon as I walked in the room, he said, "Don't ever leave me again." And I told him, "Don't you ever leave me again." And I was so confused by, he kept talking about things, and he was very confused, seemingly confused. And over the next courses of days, he had they say it's like a passing over, and he was between heaven and the hospital. And so he could see everything that was happening. And he started telling us that God did the chest compressions. He could see the angels in the room. He could see me in the hallway. So it was a very weird situation to me. You hear these heaven for real stories. And so it was really hard for me to digest about that the fact that he had been telling us for days that it was going to happen, and his potassium had skyrocketed very high, and that is what caused the code. And so they checked all of his meds. Everything was fine. He was very sick. The situation had started from him coming out of Cheyenne to, we almost drove him to Denver, to changing to going by ground. Then we were going to go critical ground, to then they decided to go flight for life. And so there was something through the whole course of the events that God obviously was with him, because, we could have drove him to, then we flew him, and then they didn't know if they should put him on a regular floor, then took him to the ICU. So the whole situation was just, it bothers me to this day, because every time he gets sick, I'm very jumpy and I'm very nervous, and I can still see the story play out, in my head. It's the worst thing I'd ever experienced, and I never, ever want to experience that again. And he still can talk about it and remembers it very clearly. But, I'm just so thankful that God has, given us every day, every second that we have with him. And
Maverick, did you see God?
Yeah.
What did he look like?
It's a big guy in a white dress.
Was he wearing sunglasses? Was he cool?
He had blonde hair like me.
Oh, yeah? That's cool. Was he smiling?
Yeah.
Did he talk to you?
Kind of.
Kind of. Oh, was it more of a mental thing than speaking?
He only said one thing. Maverick, it's been really nice meeting you, but I'm going to give you back to your mom. That was the only thing that he said, and then brought me back to my room, and then left.
There's that movie in the theaters right now, Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
They cast Gal Gadot for that role. Do you think maybe that actually should have been your mom? Is she the real Wonder Woman here?
Oh, yes.
Or maybe Superwoman?
Well, she doesn't have heat vision, so no.
So God and his angels were looking after you that day, and I think they still are. But angels come in a number of different forms, and I believe that there are angels on this earth, and we can all help them out. That's why we've got the Maverick Strong Marathon going on right now, with a number of different ways that you can contribute, starting at kingfm.com. The Maverick Strong Marathon will continue here on 1019 King FM and kingfm.com.